I guess we can get going here shortly. This is the 12th Knowledge Seekers Workshop, and we're together with the Knowledge Seekers of the Spaceship Institute and Mr. Keshe of the Keshe Foundation, and we'll see what's been happening this week and get caught up with the latest information, latest knowledge that's coming out of the Spaceship Institute. I know there's special emphasis on some of the research from the Fukushima experiments, and that'll be interesting to see more about that. There's PDFs available now. There's 4 new PDFs that have just come out from the Keshe Foundation, and they're available on the Keshe Foundation website on under the new publications area there. And we'll be talking about some of those tonight, and who knows what else. It's always interesting, that's for sure. Okay, so I'll turn it over now to folks from the Spaceship Institute, and we'll take it from there.
Good morning. Today we try to see what are the questions first, because we usually tell you everything, and then the questions somehow down the line doesn't get fully to what answers they need. Are there any questions about any of the tests you are doing or any experiment you're carrying out? Is there anything at the moment?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I definitely have a question, and that's regarding the idea of using brass as a material to create conditions for plasma inside a reactor setting. Specifically, say a brass sphere. I know there's different alloys of brass that have various contents of tin and zinc and trace minerals and other things that are added to the brass to give it particular qualities and color and so on. So there's many types of brass which would definitely influence the type of nano coating that might occur on a brass sphere, say. And I'm wondering what you guys at the Spaceship Institute, what your knowledge is on the use of brass. And I had a brief conversation with Mr. Keshe earlier today, this morning, 4 o'clock his time, a.m., on the use of brass in some of the reactors that they have. So I'm interested in getting more knowledge about brass from Spaceship Institute or others that might be listening and can add to the conversation about that. So I'm just starting to get into that whole realm, and I'm ready now to do it's going to use the sodium hydroxide coating process, but I'm open to other suggestions as well.
What we have done, the only place we are using brass is in the center pin of 2 of the reactors, or 3 of them. One is Marcos. No, just one. We are using in Marcos system, and we have seen what we've done. The core is totally steel, and what we have done is that we inserted a brass pin from the south pole in center of the core. It has a shape of like a little sphere on the top, is the way it's been cut by John. And it's been coated, nano coated, and we have run a test now. It's been on for about a couple of weeks. we observed, we took this reactor out of the formation a few days ago and tried to observe individually its characteristics. So we could see a large change in the center, what you call the equator line, to about 1.1, 1.2, and north and south much less. Then what we decided to do is to start literally understanding the shape of the plasma in this core. This core is the one you've seen before, with the 4 brass rings on top to measure the energy of the plasma or fields of the layers of the plasmas or gases in the core. Interesting enough, as we started trying to analyze this data, we, Marco and John and me, we spend time literally, what do you call it, measuring the fields, and on a z-axis was large variation. So at the end, we, John and Marco, built like a fixed position board for the detector, that the detector follows the curvature, that we get a precise figure and numbers for the plasma. And literally from today we start calibrating the first core, which is this core. But in general, what it shows is possible. What we did was we put hydrogen, nitrogen, helium and argon in combination of, I think, 8 to 4 and 14 hydrogen in the steps. And we've seen the production of the plasma in the center core. I'll give that to Marco to explain more about it. But this is the time we have used it's the only time we use brass. I'll give it to Marco, let him explain more in detail.
Thank you. The reactor I'm working on, and it was given to me by Mr. Keshe. It is a reactor that was designed years ago. You can see it also on the pictures of Keshe Foundation from before. It has 4 brass or copper rings on the top to observe currents inside the reactor. We actually opened this reactor from the bottom and inserted a pin from the bottom to the middle of the reactor. And this pin is brass pin. So this is only experiment that we have here with brass. That brass was nano-coated, and we inserted it from the bottom to the middle. There is also another pin from the top to the middle, and on that pin there are holes for the feeding of gases, and there are connections to observe. So these connections from rings on the top to the middle of the reactor, so that we can observe environment inside the reactor. So we started our tests maybe 1 month ago with this reactor, and first we used different layers of gases. Like Mr. Keshe also explained before, it was 8 measures of argon, 2 nitrogen, 4 helium, and then we added step by step also hydrogen. We use layering of the gases as a shielding between between plasma and wall of the chamber of the reactor, so not to lose this plasma. Then we observed some fields from this reactor, and there were also some other changes in different configurations of this reactor. Depends where it was sitting, depends where other reactors were sitting. There were some increasing of speed of the motor and decreasing, and things were changing. So we decided we were using AC motor, and this motor was not very stable, especially when we tried to put the special rotation speed of the motor, but it was very difficult to define correct speed, and that's why we decided to change the motor. This week on Monday we changed AC motor with DC motor, and with DC motor it's much easier to adjust speed. When we put reactor on the working table, we measured the fields. Actually, we didn't exhaust any gases before we started to change the motor. We just stopped the motor and we leave all the gases inside, plasma inside. And when we changed the motor, then we started to measure fields, and we observed increased field in the middle of the reactor. We take measurement with our magnetic sensor, which measures magnetic fields in 3 directions, X, Y, Z. And when we change the position of the sensor, we observed the peak of the fields in the middle of the reactor, and this was just near the tip of that pin. So plasma is sitting at that pin. There was about 3 times more stronger field in that position than there is environment field strength. Then we try to see what will be the change if we vacuum the chamber, and we decided to vacuum gases from the layers of the chamber, and we vacuum it, and actually we didn't lose that plasma. Field was still there, so even without layering of the gases, plasma was still holding in the chamber. In a way, that pin in the middle of the reactor was somehow attracting, was holding the plasma in the middle. And these nano layers at the pin, they create some kind of gravitational field that attracts plasma. And in a way, you don't need some external magnetic field to press the plasma from the outside to the middle of the chamber, what are nowadays using in mainstream physics. They create giant magnets, cores, and whatever to hold the plasma in the center. But with this nano coating, we were using brass at this experiment. We can observe that plasma is held in the center just by nanomaterial. So that's our experience. And well, in brass you have different alloys, you have different materials, and because of that, I would say you have different spectrum of different nano layers also. And you don't have only one material. Maybe because of that, it's more difficult to work with this material because the characteristics are changing. It's more difficult to define properties because in one conditions, let's say zinc will come into operation. In one condition, copper will come into operation. And by my opinion, let's say for starting of experiments, it's easier to work with one material, let's say copper. Even with stainless steel, we found out that it's very difficult to nano coat it. But stainless steel is also alloy of different elements, and you have different interactions because of these elements that are in the alloy. And I don't know, I at that moment I don't understand very clearly the stainless steel, how the atoms in the stainless steel are interacting with the plasma. Actually, each atom, each element in the core of the reactors has impact in the plasma. Plasma is in the middle, and it has to interact with its environment. And if you have many different materials in that environment, it's more difficult to work to define exact conditions for this plasma than if you have only one material. So if you are planning to work with brass, it's very good to do experiment with this. But I can expect that you will have different characteristics out of this brass. But anyway,
and how was your brass coated?
It's coated in the similar way that other materials. We used caustic, and we put it into the caustic, like it was described in Fukushima.
Okay, so the the same way that we do our coatings on other materials then as well. And because it's a composition of materials, it's going to give a different spectrum of the gravitational magnetic field.
Yeah.
So because you're dealing with a plasma and it's basically magnetically or gravitationally pulling on as a plasma itself, then that is it's kind of like gravitating towards itself and holding it in that position when you remove the gases from your stainless steel cylinder. That's what you said. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So
Okay,
that was our main observation of this experiment, and you can use this in your experiment also. So if you have center column, it should be nano-coated, and you can use materials that can be nano-coated, and so you can hold this plasma only. Well, we started with layering of the gases, but then we didn't have any layers anymore.
Right, but that's to basically start the creation of the plasma anyways, right? You need to have those layers there to be able to insulate the plasma because it's not formed yet or it's not opened in the slightest. So you have to have that layering there to be able for the plasma to gravitate around that central pin. Now, that central pin being brass, is it brass for a specific reason because of the stainless steel, or is that just a material that you guys chose?
No, there is no specific reason. We just have this material here and we use it. So we said, let's try it to see what will be outcome. And for the layering, yes, we used gas layering to create our plasma, but maybe it can be created also without gas layering. At that moment, we didn't try it. That maybe in next experiment we have here this core, we'll try also without gas layering. But I cannot say at that moment.
Right. There's no tubes or anything in that pin. It's just a solid pin. Is that right?
Yes, just a solid pin.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
One more regarding other metals being nano-coated. Can silver be nano-coated in the same method, the caustic method?
Yes, it can be. We tried to nano-coated stainless steel, which was coated with very thin layer of silver with electrolysis, but we couldn't get nano layers. Maybe we also didn't put enough caustic, or I don't know exactly. But Mr. Keshe has experience with coating of silver with nano layers.
With the same method with caustic?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Yes.
I think Mr. Keshe said a couple of workshops ago that it's all up to the amount of energy that material receives to be able to chip that atom out of where it was. And by adding energy, of course, you can add heat as well, which would be just more of the caustic solution or hotter water or heat up the material itself. I think that works as well. Is that right?
Yes, yes. But here is another thing. If you have stainless steel and thin layer of the silver, it's again different than if it's only only silver. So yes, the heat is very important. Actually, you release fields or heat, or what you can say also fields, and with these fields, atoms received these fields, and they came out of the material, and then they cannot join again to material, and then these nano layers are created. Let's say single atoms. And with this procedure, actually we create nano layers like material and whole, and depends what kind of, how much energy we put inside with this caustic, then we get different layers, or we can also use other additional materials, and we create different gaps between these layers. So with these layers, with holes and nano atoms, with these layers we create this magnetic gravitational field, which we can use them in next procedures. Let's say when we create GANS material in the salty solutions, and also in other procedures, these magra fields can be used.
So another question regarding the Coca-Cola bottle nano layering. Can you use boiling water in that situation, or use a lower temperature water in the Coke bottle?
You can use boiling water, but you have to be very careful when you pour this boiling water into the bottle. It will shrink, and it blows back out, and you have to be very careful, and first take care for your protection.
Thank you. The other another question I had regarding the type of gases that are being produced. There's I'm getting quite a quantity of orange gas. Is that CO2 gas, or is it a different gas?
Orange, most probably CH3.
CH3, okay.
Some tests have shown CH3, some spectroscopy.
You should do a spectroscopy to say exactly what kind of material it is.
So
there are different.
If it was
Depends
CH...
what kind of fields you create with your nanomaterials. I've seen some spectroscopy of white material that was produced in one of the experiment, and it showed zinc carbonate, no zinc carbonate, it was OH hydroxide, and yes, but the question is where this carbon came from. And then I asked the guy who did this experiment, and he said that he observed also small bubbles in his cells, and we also here quite regularly are observing these bubbles. So these bubbles, most probably there is a gas. What kind of gas is, I cannot say exactly, but it can be hydrogen. It can be maybe helium, I don't know. So anyway, there is we can say there is oxygen in the cells, and how we can get this carbon. Oxygen is 16, carbon is 12. So to get this, it can be from oxygen, or it can be also from environment. So the tests from before were done, and there was absorption of CO2 from the environment. And but here there was not in the spectroscopy. It was quick infrared spectroscopy that it doesn't give all the information. They observe CO3, not CO2. That was to zinc.
Always comes in carbonate. You get a CO2 with the water, which comes to CO3. And you get a hydrogen mixed up with solar mixed. It's a conversion of the CO2 in interaction with the water. And that's why.
Yeah, okay, I will pass to Mr. Keshe.
I'll be back to Marco later on. No, the thing is the CO3 comes from the absorption of CO2 plus in conjunction with the water, and it releases some hydrogen and oxygen. The process is, well, we can explain it because we run a test in a 1 cubic meter carbon saturated, CO2 saturated test in the nuclear center in Belgium 3-4 years ago, or more than that. And we have observed this absorption of CO2, which when you put it in the liquid environment of the water, it gives you the CO3, but it always needs something to attach itself to. This is one of the reasons when I do the experiment with making nano coating, I use distilled water, because normal water from the tap or whatever has different ingredients. So if you have a calcium which is normal, then when you make this material and you put it in the water, the calcium which was in the water, which is attached to the residual on the nano layer, top layer, leads to the production of CaCO3. We know this is correct through reports from a nuclear center testing Raman spectroscopy. So if you want to have a very much homogeneous type of coating, try to use distilled water. Even the mineral waters you buy off the shelf, or the natural waters you buy off the shelves, most of these, as we know in England, people more or less tap it from their house tap, and they sell it as a mineral water. This has been in Buxton in England a few years ago. The guy started a natural mineral water, Buxton water, and he was tapping it in his back garden, and he was selling very well because it was a very well-known village for its natural waters. So, but the best thing is to buy distilled water, then you know exactly what you have in your hand. On the other hand, Marco referred to this plasma which is connected to the center pin. The reason we have 4 reactors with the center pin, where we don't have a double core over the experimental test and the long term of trying different things, is that when you put a center pin, we used to even use, when we used to use nuclear materials, we used to mount in central pin radioactive materials. But in a way, this center pin with a nano layering on it gives stability to the plasma, because most of your reactors is not centralized and it's not fully balanced. So there is a vibration. The plasma literally is like in a milkshake machine. It rotates at a high speed. And if it touches the walls or whatever, This center core brings stability and hold into the plasma in the center. What is you referred to a question of how you heat or bring silver or other materials into a nano condition. Is the way you have to devise and test. From test over years and observing different procedures, you can literally even nano coat gold. We done it. We have a sample. But the whole process of the heating is to loosen up the top layers naturally, not through heating through electronics or heating the element up, because then the process is totally different. So what you have to do, I like the method we talked about, the steaming. You put a plate or on top or a mesh on top of the caustic, and you just fill up the caustic just below touching the material. So you create a environmental nano layering on top in a soft way. This nano layering is very vulnerable to destruction, where when you dip the material in the caustic and you put it inside and then you boil it with it as you put hot water on it caustic, that creates a different type of nano layer thickness and structure. All nano layers are not exactly the same in the structure when you look at the cross. The important thing is if you don't achieve nano layering in one method, look at the others. I use what I call like a heap. I put a heap of caustic. Usually for this I use special plastics that they don't bend and twist. And I literally bury the material inside the caustic. If you want to increase the caustic on one side, you literally put your caustic on top of your material on top of the caustic. If you want if you don't achieve it, you bury it inside. That few microsecond high temperature achieves the change in releasing. The minute you achieve the first layer nano, the condition is created to pull the rest up from the skin. So you have to test to see how and what composition material you have in your hand. The most important point with making nanomaterials, I had to literally test different things, different conditions. I have spent years in seeing how different materials react, how the composites react. There are tests done which one day we publish, which is very unusual for production of nanomaterial, where you will see if you can do it the right way, you can make a GANS, a nano layer, a GANS and a nano layer. This is very typical and you can do it for specific reasons, but you cannot make a GANS out of it any further. This nano layer, GANS nano layer sandwich it has huge applications in producing specific materials. It's like having a coded material. You want let's say CO2. If you have managed to put a GANS inside the layer, you put it in the machine and that gravitational magnetic CO2 will create your CO2 in your reactor. This is part of the matter production we'll teach later on. It's a little bit too advanced. So GANS layering is literally like keeping a memory card. When you want to produce certain material, you put a memory card and you achieve it. This can be done even with reactors layering. I was trying to explain this to Armin yesterday on the floor. There is a big, big, big warning. Please, please. I had to explain this yesterday to the knowledge seekers. Do not, under no circumstances, taste, touch nano or GANS materials. Heroes will be zeros. You will die sometimes because of it. This world of science has just opened their eyes and they start doing tests on these materials. I know a number of institutes and laboratories have started to understand the characteristics of these materials. I explained to the knowledge seekers yesterday. We know for a fact, if you digest or you try to be clever and taste the fat on the top, this top layer, what we call fat, still carry in it floating, let's say, copper oxide, if you're producing copper oxide in your box. When you taste it, this copper oxide will sink and stay between your gum and your cheek. The gravitational magnetic field is plasmatic. Interaction in the front of under your jaw is a direct interaction with your parothyroid glands. High possibility. Copper oxide shows in laboratory tests, we have a data for it, can, in conjunction with enzymes, lead to depletion of phosphor. And when this information is edited and put in your DNA through your parothyroid glands, means the body will deplete, will release, and literally eject a lot of phosphor. Then what happens? This can lead, the parothyroid glands have to go and look in the body for replacement for phosphor, and we know through the medical science that the only conversion coming from to phosphor, as the body changes phosphor to calcium, will take calcium to convert to phosphor. Then in the long term, this leads to bone weakness, brittle bone. This is just one example. We know some of these, what do you call it, GANS materials produce horrendous reduction in certain materials. The tests are there, we have data. We try to ask people, but this is your responsibility. We can guide you, we can inform you. And that's why I said from the beginning, do not touch nano layers with a bare hand if it's absorbed in your body. If I touch it, I feel it, and I show reactions through my liver. This is a warning. People, hundreds of thousands of people we know around the world are making these caustics to see what they can do with the energy production on the layers or whatever. This touching, because there are 2-3 things. You don't wash these nano layers, so you still have certain amount of caustic on the layer when you take it out, when you dry it. So that's one hazard, digesting the caustics. The other is the nanomaterial, which are in the same composite structure as your body in a GANS state. So absorption is direct. So the long-term problem is nitrogen deficiency, change of nitrogen. We know, for example, the change of nitrogen level in the lung leads to pneumonia. This is why a lot of older people and sick people with AIDS and that kind of diseases get flooded lungs with water, liquid, and with pneumonia, the infection of lung. The only reason for this we have proven to be correct is that because of the change of the balance in the layers as you get older, or as you get frail or weaker, changes, and this changes the direction and the change of the ionization of the what you call oxygen and hydrogen into a direct H2O. And that's why you find people, I was explaining yesterday to the knowledge seekers, you find people with 3 liters or 6 liters of water in their lung. And if you measure the weight never changes from the day before the water was created. This is the hypocrisy in the world of medicine, that they think the water comes from. The water comes from the operation of the lung and its interaction with the air you breathe in. So if you inhale or you touch these copper oxides, any other chemicals, especially metal, what do you call it, gases, if you inhale them, you change the balance of the lung process. This can lead to literally creation of lung infections and pneumonia and the rest. The data for this will be released in due course. It's something we have. We know exactly how nitrogen is affected by by the gases, but there are certain reasons we don't release it because it can create some other problems for other people. But I advise you, please, as before, handle all the gases with glove. Do not touch, or in a way, if you have a gas on your hand, don't rub it, as I've shown to the knowledge seekers so many times. Just put your hand under the water and let it wash away. Because when you rub your skin together to wash it, you actually push it and absorb it in your body. So this warning has to be understood because we know huge number of people are trying these things at home. We don't want to create another problem by not understanding the process. So do not attempt in digesting or in doing experiments which exposes you to breathe any kind of environment with a gas in it. This is for the scientists and the knowledge seekers in the near future to understand the operation and how to do things with it. This is how you absorb energy. The other point is we go back into what Marco was explaining. The interesting point is that we have managed to create plasma using the gas material with layering. But at the same time, we have managed to hold on to the plasma in the center of the core. We had to remove or open up the star formation with 7 reactors, which we set for past 3-4 weeks. The reason being that we observed certain surges on the detectors, and there's a discussion here that this is to do with electronics. When the detectors were moved, and some of the detectors have a what we call precision of 8 Gauss, and some are more. But the fact is that when the reactors were moved or changed position or changed the speed, instantaneously other reactors moved in the speed up or down or totally stopped. So it means the plasma surge is taking place irrespective of what is on the meter, because it's a physical evidence. We have 3 reactors, 2 reactors, which is one is belong to Iran, one is belong to the Iranian reactor, and the center core pin came to a halt on the intermediate sessions, but the other 2 are still on hold. The reason that the other 2 are on hold because they are literally half a sphere total nano layering, so they have absorbed the whole energy of the plasma in the direction which the plasma was moved. So what we see, you don't have this problem, or if you have it in your reactors, it's confined or releases itself. But there is a huge question and a huge development which has been the dream of the nuclear physicist. In the process of creating fusion, what do you call it, plasma, we have managed to achieve cold fusion plasma. This is a major breakthrough in the world of physics, and this plasma, it's held. I was looking for this, where this plasma is stored, and now with the test with unit of Marco, 100% we can see the structure. I asked John last Friday, we spent more or less whole afternoon or part of the afternoon trying to understand how he made his ceramic, because my suspicion was that there is a cavity within the ceramic which is holding the plasma and releasing it. Then, my assumption was that the what do you call it, Armon reactor double core is holding, because wherever that was near to was releasing. But going through the work and discussing it with my plasma colleagues, nuclear physicists, in a very direct way, what we have created in having a center core reactor hanging and placing 6 cores around it, which are creating plasma, we have created what is known as a cold fusion plasma state. And where this actually was held or assumed to be held, this plasma, is in the inner core center of the energy system. It was devised, it's a very small, it's fully nano-coated, so it has held the energies, and when the condition like change of the speed on other environments has caused the change in the magnetic gravitational balance of the whole setup of 7 reactors, the energy was released and it has been absorbed by the major one, which is holding the maximum capacity, which was E1s, because the minute they reduced the speed, it shut down more or less, and still today cannot start it. We vacuumed it, we did everything with it, and this reactor shows very high value of magnetic plasma condition. Then when this was fully out of operation, the next one which had the capability to do, which was on the same line on the other side, was the uranium reactor, and that has got saturated. And then we've seen other conditions with a rapid increase in the speed of Marcos. So in so many ways, in the past week, by doing little tests and developing different things, we're going to repeat this to confirm it again and again, that we have achieved the cold fusion plasma condition. But if we release the plasmas in a specific strength or packages, then from the same plasma inside this core, we can produce helium, hydrogen, helium, nitrogen, or any other matter. Depends what strength, capacity, mass has been held within this plasma, and how many hydrogen has been, protons and electrons being added to the pot in the center. This should be able to more go into detail when John, Marco, and all of us now we concentrate on one reactor. We're not doing any other setup. The core Marco is working with now is set up maybe for a week or two. We spend time on this, and I would like to see how much and if we can literally extract material from this reactor. It is possible, but we've seen it as an energy from one core to another with change of speed and saturation. Now the point is to allow this very simple way without any electrical inputs, without any heat, which has led to creation of the plasma in these cores, to lead to the production of the materials by literally taking the measure of that material. This is how the stars create matters. The stars don't just produce matter, they create the plasma of the matter, of let's say hydrogen or helium or gold. And as this package moves in the environment of their galaxy or in their, shell, when it comes in the right condition to convert, it becomes that matter. This is how the fusion is done. Fusion, the way people assume that the nuclear physicists that is done by collision, is total nonsense. It's just by literally, if you have let's say a liter of plasma, you get hydrogen. If you have 2 liters of the plasma, you get helium. And this is the measurement scale that we have to expand the knowledge in. So in so many ways, by transferring energy and bringing one plasma or one reactor to a halt, as I explained last week, not only we have developed a technology to achieve cold plasma condition fusion. It's not a fusion to produce material. This is a fusion plasma. It's targeting. What has happened? The center core has become the reserve tank, and literally the fields from the other 6, because the way they were set up, have concentrated the field into this center, and that's how it's been achieved. But I think what we're going to do with John and Marco, and we're literally concentrating this week, we should be able to increase the plasma in the center of this steel core with a brass coating. So these are the things which are in development, and we see the new concept of production of material through plasma and not through fusion of or hitting or collision of matters, which is the wrong physics, can be proven and is there. We have produced gold in this thing. I explained the process. I tried to explain it in the way it is done. You can literally pinpoint where how much gases you put and what material you put, and at a certain position in your layers or between your layers produce the materials you need. This is a natural phenomenon. This is one of the mysteries of the life on this planet, where the nitrogen comes. The gravitational magnetic field of the packages which are released by the sun at a given position on an upper atmosphere are equal to nitrogen. That's why we see nitrogen on the upper level of this planet. And that nitrogen and the process which ionizes the helium or it ionizes other matter leads for nitrogen to be continuously supplied from the environment of this solar system and not by the planet. And that's why nitrogen rains down all the time and you've got such a high value of it. When Earth moves to a slightly different position nearest to Sun, which the environmental gravitational magnetic field of this planet and the Sun and the position will be cannot support production of nitrogen, life on this planet will finish. This is how has been and that's how it will be. So in so many ways, what we are creating now in these reactors, it is how the life and existence and materials and matters are created in the universe. So in a future time, in the next few million years, when Venus moves in and the gravitational pull of the sun pulls the Earth towards itself, the environment for the conversion of nitrogen will not be available to this planet. So life on this planet will come to its natural or will progress or evolve into supporting life in another material. But this is how the whole chain is connected to each other. I explained this in detail to Arman yesterday because he's very much involved. He has a talent in doing things in a different way. I was explaining to him yesterday that he understands what he does and how he processes things. So you've got to understand the process of the creation on any universe, on any planet, on any star, or any even micros in a sea or in a liquid. The whole structure is if you change the nitrogen level, you create problems in the lung. It's the same if you create changes in the nitrogen level in the upper atmosphere. By moving the planet closer, you have the same problem. You will most probably, there is a lot of things about conversion of, it's my phone. The level of the nitrogen in the lung changes. It gets you more water and you get pneumonia. So if the planet changes, then we might get floods because of the creation of more water on this planet. There is a huge breakthrough in what the foundation is going to release specifically about nitrogen in the coming days. We have the data, we are analyzing it, we will discuss it with the officials in how the knowledge will be siphoned to public. The situation is you have to understand the process of how nanomaterials work and how GaNs works. On the upper layer, the GaNs of the nitrogen is a GaNs state, is not in an atomic state. This is another condition on the position. The material we know on the upper layer, I discussed this before with you, in all the planetary system, in all the universal system, in a plasma condition, is because very much like the way you do your nanomaterial. The planet is solid, and because of the conditions, GaNs layers are developed, and the lighter GaNs, which are like gases, are structured in the outer layer due to the vacuum condition of the plasma of the solar system and due to the rotation of the centrifuge condition of the planet itself. So we understand a full process of production and creation of life. We know, I explained this to you before, we know the outer layers are GANs because the clearest indication of it is if you look at the North Pole of the Saturn. The hexagonal shape I explained to you before is due to the combination of three ganses. And that when you have a dynamic three-layer ganses, one of the strange things which it does, it creates a hexagonal shape pattern. And we see this the same way in nano layering. When you have more time to explore more the technology, you will understand exactly look at the structure of the what we call the fat on top of each cubicle. Some of them are in the shape of hexagonal shape because they are even as fat are in the state of GANs. So I passed what do you call it, the microphone to John.
So, hello to everyone. I would start by asking, do you have any question?
I got a
Is
quick
there?
one,
Yeah.
Mr.
Okay.
Keshe. He is
He,
mentioning that, yeah?
he has a telephone call now. He's not there
Oh,
anymore.
okay, yeah, okay. I will ask him after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we've been talking about the material produced. Well, when there is a spectrum analysis of some material, we have to see that GANs material doesn't behave in the way normal material are made or analyzed. In fact, the spectrum analysis shows, in fact, not material itself, the GANs material shows whatever else is there. So the paper that Marco gave us, made by someone in Slovenia, showed in fact presence of OH and CO3. Those are in fact radicals. Those are in fact elements that are in the composition of what's in the nanomaterial GANs. It doesn't show, it was white stuff, white GANs, and the spectrum analysis gave OH and CO3, but most probably it was because the zinc is there also, which would be in fact zinc carbonate and maybe zinc hydroxide. So the material which is analyzed is if the spectrum analysis is done, we have certain elements, we don't have the whole of it. And if we compare, we've been looking at what is already existing in on the internet. There is the orbital reorganized metallic energy, ORMUS. Those are matters that behave and resembles a lot, very much to what is the GANs. So we have some elements of comparison. Analysis of that kind of material has to be made in a different way, just as the GANs is to be made in another way. And one of the analyses that is used for that kind of material is a long burning spectroscopy. And that's because the GANs is then transformed back to material, and then analysis can be done. So there is still a lot of aspects, and well, magnetic resonance is also a part of the way to analyze that kind of material, and appearance of superconductor behavior is important also. So those are all elements that have to be seen in this kind of material. So,
Hey, John, I have a quick question on that. You said that burning the material brings the GANs back to a material. Is that with any form of GANs, brings it back to a material?
Well, that was it's because energy is put back in, we convert it. So in fact, that was an experiment Marek did by burning it, and gave black stuff, black material. So we don't know, because analysis has been done at that level, so we just see aspects. I wouldn't like to give any analysis information when I don't have them. So it's not easy to say.
Okay, thank you. I was just wondering about the, I think we were talking just before you guys came in about how the Fukushima would, by turning the radiation into a GANs, or the material that's causing the radiation into a GANs, could that be then burnt and bring the radiation back into a matter state?
Well, the fact is that because of the GANs, the material is, for example, cesium is put in new condition. That's why it doesn't release its radiation, because it's the stability of the atom is changed. That doesn't mean that material itself there has transformed. It is just put in a new condition.
Right, and you can change that condition again, right?
So that condition could be changed later. It depends high evolution of what the material is done. But normally what the GANs material is should be stable, and that stability allows the cesium to stay there.
So just by using the GANs material and cesium, let's say, inside a reactor, you would still be able to release the plasma of that cesium due to it being in a GAN state. Is that right?
In a reactor, in the atomic reactors.
No, I mean inside of a plasma reactor. We're getting on to the point of getting the center core filled with GANs I mean, that's at a later date, but we're still talking about it. And I was thinking about like the cesium that would be able to be used, or the tritium in a GaN state inside the reactor.
Well, no experience about that yet, but extrapolation of what we start to see, yes, there might be some aspect interesting, but we cannot conclude anything in forehand.
Right.
I don't know what that would bring us to. Even the GaNs reactor, we just started to rotate some system. I've been using one of my cores in which the GaNs, the blue copper GaNs, has been inserted. Well, I had mechanical stability, so we had some measurements made, but it has been shut off for the moment because of first there was too much noise, then some other mechanical problems has to be worked again, but we still have a lot of work to do with the reactors we have now. But one aspect was, in fact, that magnetic fields could be measured around that reactor, even though it didn't turn a long time. So it was visible.
So
that
magnetic fields around the GaNs reactor? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good.
But
okay.
in fact,
this
what's
is
happening?
Like one of those ping pong sized balls, like reactors, or a little bit bigger.
Well, it's 7 centimeter in diameter.
Okay, so that would take quite a bit of GaNs, a couple hundred milliliters.
So we've been filling it for about 1/4 of its volume with the copper GaNs. And rotation is in fact putting that material on the sides because of the centrifugation of the material. It goes on the equator and up above and lower the equator. And what was done by centrifugation is in fact allowed the separation of water from the GaNs because it was introduced with water. And that separation was very clear because just by pouring taking the sphere and pouring it, the water came out, but not the GaNs. So all the GaNs that was inserted was in fact separated. And once the water has been taken out, I've been adding more of the GaNs in the I took the volume of water taken out and I added more of the stuff. And so in fact to keep the proportion of GaNs material in my system. So, but the fact is that it has been stopped in this process, and well, it will be followed up later, but not for the moment. I cannot say when exactly, but will be in a week or two.
Okay, because you have to fill this from the same tubs all the time, right? It has to be the same material in the tubs that you put inside. Now that
Well,
means material from the tubs, right? It doesn't mean it's the same material.
it could be a different material, and that would allow separation of the different material, also creating different magnetic fields produced in the different layers. And that does magnetic field created in different layers should allow us to have the magnetic and gravitational fields. So this is a next step, but cannot be done for the moment. The mechanical problems have to be solved.
Right. Now, would you call the GANS reactor as a leader reactor?
Well, it could be. A suggestion was to use a star formation system just with these kind of material. What is strange also is that my clay reactor that is in the formation has a behavior quite different from the other reactors, because there is apparently plasma inside, but the fields around the reactor are very low. For example, the environment is about at 45 to 50 microtesla, and the NEMA reactor would be 30 from 20 to 38, 40. So depending if we are at the top or the bottom, we have the different values showing then that there is some plasma inside, but the clay, which is a high-fi clay, is in fact creating fields that is like absorbing the magnetic fields of the Earth.
I was going to say an insulator to the magnetic fields.
Well, insulator, no, it's
or more of an absorber.
It is reducing the environment value of the field around itself, all around this ceramic reactor. The fields are reduced, so it's like if the ceramic is in fact attracting and it is reducing the environment magnetic fields. So it's a behavior which is completely different than what is happening with the other reactors.
Right, because with I've seen Yvonne's video, which shows 250 microtesla reading around his reactor, but you see completely the opposite. That's so would that excuse me, I'm just trying to think here that if your reactor is reducing that and it's absorbing, then it would be pulling on the plasma that's in the rest of the systems into a certain formation. Do you see it that way as well?
Well, in a certain way, yes, that's it. Well, I'll pause the microphone too.
The ceramic reactor is behaving like a gravitational system. Ivan's reactor is holding and behaving like a magnetical system. This is the difference. The ceramic system, because we got to analyze it and what do you call it, put the scales on its work and do the measurement on it. But when you see a reduction in that kind, that which is less than its environment, it means this system is gravitation, is holding and attracting field internally. So
Right, so Mr.
it's
Keshe.
yes,
Sorry. So like, gravitational system, I think we discussed this a couple of years back about the planets and their fingerprints with the magnetic and gravitational fields. Some will have higher gravitational, less magnetic. So this would be what we're seeing with John's reactor, is that because we were measuring a lower magnetic field, if we had a way to measure the gravitational field in that kind of way, we would notice an increase in that field. Can you say that as well?
Yes. In a way, yes. So what happens when you see increase in or reduction in the fields around the environment compared to the environment? It means the system is not what do you call it? Does not reflect or send out more of its magnetical field, so is lower. So it means its gravitation is pulling inward. This is part of, as you said, the fingerprinting, and the system has to be adjusted in evaluation and measurements of how they do it. There is a
so could you do that by the center pin?
Pardon?
Could you change the parameters by the fingerprint, let's call it, by changing the center pin in that reactor, or
No,
to
you
different
can do it
materials?
because you see the fundamental point with the whole the structure of the system like this is planetary's fingerprint cannot change because their inner core is fixed for billions of years, more or less. And once you adjust and understand the variation due to the environment and the position and the field strength of the center star, you'll find out that this fingerprint stays. The advantage with our system is that the systems you lot are producing, you can variate this. So you can change fingerprint of your reactor according to how you load it. So with this reactor, the only way you're going to change the fingerprint is by the mass of plasma. This is why I start, measuring every aspect of it. We're going to spend a couple of weeks on this new reactor, which we start calibrating. So you know that measurement of gases with such a rotation will give you such a field strength, maximum or minimum field strength, inwards or outwards. So you have to note it. The whole process is with these reactors now you have the capability to change the fingerprint, and by changing, literally the only way you do it is by the change of the mass of the plasma. As I explained to you, now we see with this reactor, the new reactor yesterday, when John and Marco vacuumed it, they decided to load it, was it 2 nitrogen?
1 hydrogen and 2 helium.
They tried 1 hydrogen and 2 helium, and we haven't seen much change in the field strength of the system. So we're going to change and decide a combination to see how we can increase the plasma strength. The strange thing enough is that the plasma would have will hold his strength. You cannot change its volume or its strength. But as Marco was explaining, the reactor we are testing has 4 brass rings, which was developed to measure the plasma current inside the plasma as part of the test reactors, original test reactors. So what I said to John, is what he did yesterday. We discussed it, that we can measure the plasma current in the core using these rings. So He made a beautiful brush that they can be in touch at the same time with all the rings. And I said to him, do not, the minute you touch it, you start draining the plasma, you change the condition inside. So before the plasma, we measured the previous day, the plasma was 1.1, 1.2. And yesterday in the test, I suddenly noticed there is something stuck to these to these brass rings. And John said, yeah, Marco said, yeah, John has put the brushes against the ring. So by touching these brushes, which we are going to use to measure the current flow later on when we finished, the system was drained. That's why we come from 1.1, 1.2 to 6.1 or 2 in the plasma. So energy in a plasma formation to matter has already been tested, so it's been drained, we are lower. So now we are going to build back up the plasma without draining it. And at the end, we're going to drain duration, the time, the speed will dictate, because we know from the test some 4 or 5 years ago in Belgium. So if you look at the pictures, John says the picture has already been put out. Yes, on the Facebook. You see the brush which is made from the normal wires for these rings. So if you work with the reactors, I explained before, I explained to knowledge seekers yesterday too, the minute you touch the core, even physically, because your body is of the same plasma condition, you change the condition of the plasma in your core. I explained that with thoughts last week regarding to John and Marek. So when you're running reactors, do not touch them. You are receiving the same kind of energy, or you're taking energy from you through the touching. The Italian scientists who were with us during the summertime, I show them how when you see a certain characteristics, but the reactor is not flipping to the condition you want. I have these what they call electric discharged gloves used by the electrician for high tension cables, and I just rub the energy reactor to just bring it to where I want it, and then from that point on, by this balancing, you brought the balancing, and we start seeing the weight reduction. So when you, as much as I advise you not to touch your nano layers, when you're running reactors, don't go close or touch your reactors. You create the same condition, you're in a plasma state. As most of you know, I ran myself into problem 5 or 6 years ago by being close to the reactors with my liver. So just because you don't see it, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. It's the same with there is no difference in the plasma you create in your reactors and the plasma of a GaNs material. There is no difference in interaction with the body. The gravitational magnetic field of this planet creates condition of life. You change gravitational magnetic field through your reactors, you change different condition. And this is what I explained to, and I still ask you, people who are testing things, do not get carried away and do things just because you're doing something. Mistaking these kind of things can be costly for your health. So be very careful, understand what you're doing, understand the process. There is no process, there is no difference between the amino acid of your body, the way it operates. There is no with the GaNs of the materials you produced, and with the plasma gravitational magnetic you produce in your reactors. This is all the same thing in different strength and size and dimensions, but in reality works through the same process. Keep yourself away from touching your reactors when they're operating. Always stay distance, always be at the level. I deliberately put the reactors on the ground floor that, by my experience in Tehran, fields do not interact with my internal organs. So the maximum we're going to get is our legs, till we understand more. On the other hand, understand you can create gravitational, taking energy from your cells of your body as much as you can feed your body through it. Depends on the characteristics of the material. Some gases will work to me as food, and it works to you as taking energy from you. Depends on the composition. Even though we all have always say 5 fingers and 2 legs, internally we are totally different. The composition, the way our life, our pattern has created and holds through evolution, had to live with the environmental condition where the seeds were grown, the plants were grown. And our body has adjusted according to. This is why, in a very simple way, we do not digest some foods from certain part of the world, because our body is not adjusted yet to them to absorb the gravitational magnetic field. And it takes time by evolution to achieve that, or we might not never do. The same process is, as I said last time, in a space I was explaining to the knowledge seekers. I can't remember if I said it on this forum. In the coming time, when we meet and we go into space, as much as we know there are other entities and beings in the universe, and they are more advanced, or not necessarily advanced as we are teaching you the whole thing. They achieve the understanding of the working of the universe much far before man. The crafts they live in, the crafts they operate in, the crafts they travel in, is made for the condition of their lives, their structure, their magnetic gravitational field. You, under no circumstances, meet in somebody else's craft or them in your craft. If they can meet in the environment outside where they are okay for them and it's okay for you, that's the point to meet. Because once you enter their space, you are conditioned to a new environment, which most probably does not match your amino acid. Then diseases and all sorts of things is possible. The same way you never allow, doesn't matter what you do, another being on your craft. Doesn't matter how beautiful they are, how nice they are. The fields they carry is different than the fields which the environment of your craft is built for. You can do 2 things. Your system can absorb their energy if it's a highest order operation, or you can cause their death, or give them different diseases, as much as they can give you. This is one of the first rules in the space colonization and interaction. If you meet in an environment outside your craft, which is good for you and good for them, that it is. But under no circumstances, this is the talk, the people who listen in this program and they understand it and they record it in the future. This is one of the conditions of the flight in the space. For your own safety, for your own life, you never enter another craft. You never enter another species environment of living unless you fully understand matches yours. Because as the environment on this planet has changed over millions of years and we have evolved to fit this environment, gravitational magnetic field, these creatures in the universe have changed the same, and it doesn't match ours. There are sterilized conditions you can create that is homogeneous, but this is technology which has to be taught in the future. You can create environments that is balanced for you as much as them, but to create this environment needs huge knowledge. So these are the things you have. Just as you create reactors, you're creating new environments in your lab, in your maybe you're doing it in your garage, the way I did for years. Be warned and be aware that you are creating new environments. When we do the measurements, I always ask the knowledge seekers to move the reactor opposite to the field detector, opposite to the direction of where the reactors are, or somewhere else, that we get the environmental measurement. Then we understand how much higher and lower we are in the plasma condition in the reactor. The condition has to be very clear. You never accept food, anything which is digestible. You do not pick or accept energy packages. This is a tradition of gift, because giving is free. It's you who can refuse it. This is the pattern of the universe operation and collaboration. But you have to understand the way you don't touch a red berry because it can kill you, and not, doesn't matter where in the planet we've been, is inherited in our DNA. That fruit can be dangerous to us if none of us touches it without ever trying it. It's the same in the space. You do not accept gifts of food. You do not accept gift of packages of energies, even though it looks good. Something which you
So
have
is the only
now.
answer to make it ourselves?
Yes, you carry your own things, you carry your own energy packs. Food as such we use is not acceptable in the space. But you have to understand certain rules of engagement in the space. The rules of engagement is very, very simple. The energy which you are given, or the pack you are given, is given with a goodwill. It's you who have to decide if it's matching with my condition or not. We learned this in recent, for example, even with us when we give lectures. Initially, 2-3 years ago, people used to give us gifts whenever we gave lectures. They give you a box of chocolate, they give you something they made in hand. And our security officers told us, you cannot touch anything given to you, you don't accept. Let a security man or somebody who's near you to handle it. Because they can, they carry germs with them, and you're not used to their germs, a flu or whatever. And so it's the same. Gift is given with pleasure of life, but we are not ready. This is how now we see this MERS disease going, and we've seen it before. So the same condition applies in the space. Gifts and giving pleasure and giving freely is the nature of space. It's us as human to understand what suits us without damaging us. You never accept another reactor, another operating reactor from another species just because yours has failed. You'll come to understand very soon, you, instead of being, let's say, on Earth, you end up on God knows the next galaxy.
Right.
The structure, even the material, is different than ours, or as a human race. Ethics of conduct in the space is not far from humanity, but understanding the process. Interaction is love and caring, but sometimes that what you received as a gift is not good for you. It's you who have to assess. The process
And we
is
should be
very
able to
simple.
use our senses for that. Is that right?
In so many ways, in the coming time and months and years, we develop sensors to know, to show us what is our limits. Because there's a maximum and a minimum limit we can accept. As much as we cannot accept the higher order magnetic gravitational fields, which is above our system, there are submatter level fields which are dangerous to us too. That's why once our body divides into it, it goes to submatter, we don't absorb them back again. There is much more life in submatter compared to human race matter point than there are above, because we are in middle. We are in the middle of the magnetic gravitational field strength. We are not the end. We are not the end of the scale. So life exists below the matter field strength of the human race too. And in time you come and you, as a race, we come in conjunction or in contact with them to understand them. But it doesn't mean they are any lower in intelligence. They are most probably more intelligent, some of them, than the human race at this moment. So these are the things which we
I'll
start
agree to
teaching
that.
slowly. Pardon?
I said I'll agree to that statement.
We don't make a statement, we state the fact. So you have to understand the process. This is one of the things which I explained to you. We not just show you how to make systems and allow you to make the mistakes and do the things because you have to learn in your way, but we start laying the guidelines and the rules of the engagement in the space. You call it a faith, you call it a process, you call it a understanding. It has to be established. Once it's stated, it's understood, the step is taken. So These are the rules of engagement. These are the things you do. You never, what do you call it, direct anger to somebody in the space, because the only one who's going to receive it back is your own anger. It's like you slapping yourself in the face, because the package of energy you release is above what you can do, and they understand it is not accepted. The recipient is back yourself. Man will learn to lose a lot of his animosity by going to space. The whole process is very simple. The process is to understand that the process of your life, your system and universe has to be all in balance and tranquil condition. You put a step outside, you damage yourself, you damage your system, you damage the what do you call, the society. It's very much no difference than this today. Any other question?
Hello, Mr. Keshe.
Hello.
I would like to understand something that I think has not been explained.
Can you
yet.
speak a bit louder, please?
I have a question. I think it was made before. Can you explain the reason and effects of applying little currents on recently coated wires? That's one of the questions, please.
Pardon? On what?
On recently coated wires. When you apply little currents, what is the reason and the effect on the coated material?
There are different effects depending on the environment. I was explaining this yesterday to Armin, because Armin did something out of line. But this is Armin. He pushes the limit of knowledge with his ingenuity. But sometimes when you don't understand it, you can put yourself in danger. He yesterday connected he connected a nano wire and put in a salt and connected to power supply. And it was like steaming and boiling, and he had the nano layers separate. As you see this, I explained to him, with what is done, he puts his life in danger, because these materials are released in a way that he's sitting on top of it and he absorbs it and inhales it. This is one of the reasons I brought the safety subject up at the beginning of this workshop. We did a test with the scientists in Ghent University years ago, and we connected the wire to very high voltage and amperage. The copper wire internally melts, and because the nano coating is porous, we could see the molten copper inside. You see the redness of it, the heat of it, but it can't go anywhere, and it's just a liquid in the bar, in the wire, and the wire holds. It will not burn. They brought the professor brought. I was explaining yesterday. Whatever he could bring on the table to increase, because initially he told us, I was explaining yesterday, that if wire can stand 1 amp is past the knowledge we know. He went to 5 amp and all the voltages he could put in and what was available in the lab in Ghent University. These wires, these coatings they interact, or they show their effect according to the environment they are. When Armin did it in the salt water yesterday, he separated the top layers of the GANs, and in a way this is a way to release the GANs without nano layers, without putting it through the GANs. But on the other hand, you do not have the same interaction effect, because now the material is in matter state, not in a GANs or a nano layer. But when he showed me the wire afterwards, the copper wires are much thinner than than before coating. So it's a clear conversion of the matter into nano layers that are very, very thin. They are the layers he has managed to, but they are not black and they are not copper color either. They are white. And I explained to him that because of the way he's put the current through it, he has changed the characteristic of the nano layer on top of the copper, which now absorbs only the wide spectrum, or not absorbs the wide spectrum. So it has created a different matter. He's got still part of it green. You can do these tests. If you do these kind of tests, I recommend you very directly, do it in a closed environment. Do not sit like almond on top of it. What you inhale can be lethal. So if you trying to test different environments, they'll be very interesting. It's one thing which I did, but it's a next step which I would like to do, is to put the nano layers in a high vacuum condition and put current through it, high voltage current, and see the performance of it. But this is something you got to do in the later stages. We know the part of the properties, but on the other hand, explore the dimensions of the technology, but put your safety first. And this is one of the things which I've seen more irresponsible behaviors in past 2-3 weeks, and this has to stop. Because if it's encouraged, can end up with a lot of problems in the future, and we are here to solve the problems, not to create new ones. Till we do not know the parameters, till we do not know the full data on everything, because you got to realize, always say, whatever you do, whatever you achieve is environmental condition dependent. The condition you create, it gives you that element. Some of you use zinc coated, some of you use steel, some of you use copper, some of you use aluminium, some of you use nickel, some of you use different things. Okay, we know that. Now, the most important factor is how much caustic did you use that is coated on this nanomaterial? What was the composition of the caustic you used? Because to you lot, it's all caustic you put in. We went to the factory and we asked for an analysis of the caustic we use. If you have certain amount of potassium added to the powder, you get a different results. In EU countries now using potassium in conjunction with caustic has limitations and rules now because of the heat it produces. When we used to use high temperature to do silver and gold, we use a specific mixture of material in the caustic. With the normal caustic you use, you will not achieve it because you have to create a condition. Then the water you use, where are you, which country you are in? What is the sediment in that water? So even you use a copper, nickel and water and caustic, even if you use a tap water from one house to another next door, can be totally different. Is there a rust in your pipes? So small changes creates different conditions, and then what it doesn't harm you, it can harm the others. These things has to be standardized, and apparently nobody understands this. It's time to open your eyes and just don't run like a, wild west and do what you like. This wild west business can end up with a lot of problem for you and in your next generation, because you're dealing with the gravitational magnetic field matter, plasma condition, GANs, and more or less at that level, as you see this black, it absorbs the spectrum of the fields, so is your DNA. You can create changes in DNA. Let the scientists which are coming and the governments who have started now listening to what is on the table, let it be. There will be more research in PhDs, there will be more doctors and professors and the new titles. I'm a professor in GANS nano, blah, 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 blah. Let these titles to be made, but at least these titles give us a parameter to understand. There'll be more work with this new technology than ever man could imagine. But allow us to understand the characteristics and the parameters.
when I was talking about little currents, was it the ones you use in your process and demonstrated in the videos? When you
Yeah,
apply
that little
this
current.
millivolts, what is the
Yeah,
effect on
even
the nano
the
coated?
still the different. It's totally different. It's exactly, if I explain it, I was telling you about John with his what do you call it? The brushes he's made for the new reactor. In just the brushes touching the core, we have dropped the energy. Now, the energy with when you show a voltmeter, you show current or voltage. You're draining from the layer. How much you drain creates a new environment on the material. The John was asking me, and Marek was encouraging him about. Ask him about the torch. Can we see the torch? I explained to them very simply. The torch which we show in demonstrations is no different than the nano-layers we produce. But what we done, we added the wires in a way that we collect the little charges in the capacitor. We've made an electric circuit for it. It cannot be done just adding to a capacitor. You make an electric circuit for it. You store these nano micro voltage amperages which are collected from the environment by nano layer. And then when you put on your torch, the capacitor is full. The life of the light is dependent on how much energy you stored in your capacitor, the strength of the light in the torch. And then if you left the torch in a specific place, you'll find out if you build these torches, if you leave them in the ground, I've done this a lot of time, you leave them on the ground on the ground level without contact with anything, they charge much faster. I've shown that to Marco a few weeks ago with a Coca-Cola bottle. If you put these in a box and just try to show it every now and then, in a closed environment, they don't charge up because the field is confined to what is in that briefcase. So you have to understand the whole process, not just do a monkey job just because you've seen something. Understand what you create, how you do it, how you connect it, how much you connect it. If you don't connect it, let me
the
explain.
process is.
If you connect your wires when you are making like a torch we done, if you even do the winding in the wrong combination, say, oh, it doesn't work. Because now the fields interact and reverse each other. You're dealing with a direct plasma interaction absorption. We've seen this in the boxes of the energy. In the square boxes you see with extract copper oxide, a part of the box energy is going that way and the other part goes the other way because it's set up the wrong way. So you don't have what you need. Part is gravitational, part is magnetical, so you can't turn your torch on. That's why the light didn't come on the first time it was tested. It's the same thing when you set up your systems. When you set up
Yes,
wiring...
Mr. Keshe, actually, I just had that experience with in my last 40 cell. I decided to take 2 more cells and add some coated copper and uncoated, and I would just hook them up in series like I would normally do with the zinc, and I was not getting any real increase. So I started just playing with the connection points, and it was everything connected to one lead, and then one lead in the water by itself made the best connection. So I definitely seen what you're talking about there. You can't just hook it up and say that's going to do it. You have to find the way that it wants to do it, not the way that you want it.
Yeah. Because you got to go further with how you position your system next to each other. The spacing of the system creates different environment. This is something I've been waiting for knowledge seekers to realize. They haven't realized it yet, and why it suddenly changes from one tray to another. When you put the bottles next to each other in a big box, or you use the square box, everything is connected, the environment is fixed because they feed through each other. When you have a tray with 20 and then you have another with 25 and you have another tray with 6, the environment of each tray in respect to the others creates a condition of gravitational or magnetical pull. I've seen this, and I wait to knowledge seekers to mature into it, and you have to do the way you've seen it. So if you change the positioning of some of your bottles, even say, okay, I want to bring the last bottle to the beginning and the middle bottle to the back, you'll find the whole operation changes. And we have seen even the color of the material inside changes to a different color. And when you put it back, the color comes back again. So it
But this
goes
is
back to,
also changes to do with the amount of current and amount of amperes that you draw out of it that I've seen. When I was having just one
yes,
simple LED, I would get one static material out of each
but,
box. But as soon as
but
I put on
remember,
more and made a more load, I seen different material.
yes, but remember one thing, the amount of energy you extract creates a different condition.
Yes.
So if you put more load on, you create a different environmental condition in your cups. If you separate them in a different way. I've given what I call, it's like a flower. Armin is doing a very nice system now with it. That we never done this. It's a center. It's like a flower. It's a baking tray. Is a non-stick baking tray with a center core like a flower and 9 what do you call it, cavities next to it. Armin is fixing it. I've asked him if we can use this for demonstration in 21st, 22nd of June in Tuscany. So we'll see if it comes and how this has never been done. In a way, all the cells are connected to one center cell internally, and all the cells are connected externally to one system. And then we'll see what the outcome will be. We can do a pre-run because we got 2 of them, or we like everybody else, will see the results hopefully in Tuscany. So we
Is
are
that
like you.
a 3D system, or is
Pardon?
it just a static on? Is it a 3D system, or is it just a
It's a
static on the
3D.
table?
It's a static. It's a baking system. You know these new plastic non-stick for ovens, silicon. Yeah, it's one of those. I just saw it in the market and I thought it'd be nice to see how a central point like a flower does and how the leaves behave with a connection internally. The wire
Oh,
outside is the atmospheric, and the center with the wires connected is like the pebbles give energy to the center that the seeds mature.
right.
There is a reason for that. So for the first time, in a way, we look at the structure of the flowers, how they behave, and how energy is transferred, hopefully. This is
Here
a
I will
real.
to intervene just a second because we discussed this before going. As Vincent and all of us were seeing, the amperage is like 5 microamperes, 10 maybe, and this kind of current, no LED or no nothing can be powered. So could you make a guess where from the energy is coming really?
Can you repeat? Can you
Lucian, let
repeat
me
the
try
question?
The
ask. Lucian, let me ask the question, okay? He's asking because we've seen it in the plasma group, and I've showed pictures to the plasma group and sent them around as well, where running 7 LEDs, it was working out to 12 volts on the 1 voltmeter, but I was only running at 3 to 5 microamps through as current. So technically, those LEDs should not be lit. So Lucian is just asking where you would surmise the energy to light those LEDs are coming from.
Yes, because this is, we looked at this with the people from Elector. We saw this phenomena with the guys from Elector. They initially they put 1 LED and then they add another LED and then they add another. Say in electronic system, we need to put circuitry to be able to use add initial. You can't just add to a system like this. So then they brought a motor, and I explained to them in a very simple way. These wires, once you connect, you go into the plasma transfer. There is no additional. If you, I don't know if you tested, I showed it to the knowledge seekers last week, the week before. Check your current flow. You have as much AC as DC in these cells. These systems, if you use your voltmeters and just switch it back to AC and a DC to see the measure, you damage your volt. You see your voltmeter goes clunky. You need to buy a new voltmeter. Because these systems have both. And at the same time, because of the layering, you convert some of the AC to DC. And at the same time, part of the plasma energy is continuously converted back into energy which you pick up as electron, as what you call it, electron vibration, or you call it current. So it's not just one DC that you see you can add to it where the amperage comes from. You have a plasma flow and you have an AC hidden in the background. Don't use the same meter to measure the AC and DC. But if you can go very, very low measurement on AC and only use it for AC when you're measuring, then you see you have a combination. I attended a meeting in Frankfurt, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, and the guy came out. I explained this to you, and he said there is a battery. I have a battery. The maximum voltage out of it, power out of it is 30 watts or whatever, and I can do things, and I get 48 watts. This is the new energy surplus, new free energy. And I asked a single question from the scientist. I said, okay, most of these people look for a DC in the battery you're showing. Why don't you explain to the audience that your battery carries a AC, and in the circuitry you put in there, you're converting AC to DC separately, and you're adding to it, so the additional energy is actually coming from the AC part of the process. This is something a lot of people don't understand. So in this process, not only you have the AC, DC which you collect with your LED, the balance current comes from the AC part of the process, and then at the same time you have a plasma current in your system, which your system accordingly takes up. That's why you don't need amplification. That's why you don't need circuitry. You can add numbers as much as you like. John told me, you know, that are doing. Yeah, John told me that you are doing 7 LED, and I just went to my lab and I brought it. I said, we've done this with 7 LED 2, 3, 4 years ago. And we even had circuitry added to it, and the lights come on. But you are getting enough knowledge to understand, to analyze. There is nothing coming free or where it's coming from. Analyze to understand the process. The current which you are getting.
I came up with the same conclusion, that it's not the electron moving through as the current, it's the plasma flowing basically on the outside as a magnetic gravitational fields.
Partially, but you have a hidden AC in these systems. You have a hidden AC because partially your plasma continuously on the edges converts into matter. When your plasma converts into matter, it attains oscillation. And then
so
you have
that's why I see the oscillation sometimes in the LED.
Yes, yes.
Okay,
a few years ago, a few years ago, a friend of ours, I hope he's still alive, he got trapped in the same trap as me with IMAC and Mr. Hans Brackenier. I think he's dying or is dead by now with cancer. He is, I hope he's still alive, he's a genius scientist. He's one of the few scientists I have a lot of respect for. I met him only once. He devised a black box and gave it to IMAC, and they kept it there, and this system creates a lot of energy. And the people from IMAC asked me, can you analyze this to tell us how it works? It took me about half an hour to realize what it's doing. I made a copy of it and I went to the guys in IMEC and I said, yes, he's correct. His system works and it's correct. And they said, can you give us a copy of it? I said, no, it's his intellectual right. And what it actually does works on the AC bridge of the magnetic fields. Once you start the isolation, then you see that you can convert AC to DC, and then at the end of the process you convert it back to AC, so it becomes a power generator without anything putting in. There is a name for it in the world of electronics. They call it scavenging. You scavenge for AC, you don't scavenge for DC. So, and this is part of the process, but in that level, because you're dealing with plasma, the same as what John did yesterday with the reactor. Thank you very much. You scavenge the plasma equal to amount of the plasma of electron, because that's the nearest thing, the lowest order of the plasma in the structure of the matter you use. So your steel has electrons, so always goes to the smallest nomination, which is the plasma of electron. If you had only proton in your reactor made of protons, then the energy level or current you absorb will be equal to proton. So it's not a hidden energy. This is understanding correctly. You have a DC, you have a AC, and you have a, because you are draining continuously, part of the plasma has to convert to keep in its boundary of protection, to keep its atmosphere. It releases its energy, and you collect these scavenging plasma energies, which become then equal to electron vibration, which you get your AC current from. So most of your energy comes through AC conversion of the plasma, not the DC side of the flow.
But of course, this is only in the static reactor, not in the dynamic reactor, which
No,
is
in a
a
static.
different concept.
Yes, but at the same time, when you use combination reactors like a star formation, or what we call what is known as 136 or 1312 reactors, you can do such a thing. You create these kind of flows in certain point between the reactors, not inside the
Right, the
reactors, but
oscillations.
yes, because the fields go through environment of the, let's say, your craft, and certain positions, certain plasmas turn and convert into the plasma of electron equal to that. In the design of
So
the
you could
crafts, you
make
have to. Let me explain something and then I'll answer you. In the design of your crafts, very much like we do the earthing, you connect the earth. All over your crafts, you design systems that absorb these kind of fields, these kind of plasma packages, what we call electron package systems. That because these electrons, because they're in a condition of the plasma, they can create interference, and secondly, they can create surges of neutron. So you avoid these kind of things. Carry on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, in those kind of oscillations, you can. It just seems that you could literally make a craft around themselves due to the oscillations at certain.
Yes. Let me go back to something which I've got to explain to you. I was telling you about this guy in IMEC, the genius Belgium scientist. He took one of these nanowires with fluorescence, and they connected to an oscilloscope, and they put in a glass of water. And he could clearly show with the oscilloscope that these systems, these wires, are energy capacitors and energy producers. I have the graph somewhere. Dirk gave it to me. So if you, for example, put these, you connect this to end of one of your wires which you coated, and put in a pure water, glass of water, you will see the peaks and what you call the amplitude of the current they produce. It's a clear indication that nano layers, nanomaterials, the way you produce, are energy absorbers or energy transferers. It's just understanding how to do it.
Right, and you can switch the polarity and the position of the probes to be able to determine which is the correct location for your needs.
More or less, yeah. It's like, what do you call it? The variable we have in electrical labs, you go up and down the scale to adjust your current or voltage for what you want to learn.
Variac.
The variacs, yeah. It's very simple. Try to understand the full structure, not just what you're looking at. One golden rule is there is nowhere a free energy. It's coming from somewhere. Understand the source, understand the process. Then you can use it to the advantage you like. There's a discussion now. I explained to the knowledge seekers yesterday that we are hoping that our Italian colleagues who are manufacturing or developing the good morning. Armand just arrived. He just woke up. So what happened is that the process I asked them that we want to go through is, instead of just creating, let's say, a generator and then connect it to the power supply to the house, we are looking, and it'll be done, hopefully it'll be completed by them if they can do it, that we go directly for wireless transmission. And Marek said, oh, this is what Tesla did. I said, Tesla did not. I had to put the energy somewhere to get it out. Through this technology, you work through plasma. You don't need to put energy anywhere. The plasma transformation of energy. So what the idea is that, for example, you connect your, what do you call it? Your second receiver, plasma receiver, on your computer, or you connect it to your refrigerator. So there is no need for electric connections, wire connections. So you can take your laptop to the other side of the world, you still charge it from your center, from your system. Because the connection is made. This is instantaneous charging. And so your refrigerators doesn't need to be plugged in. Hopefully we'll be given this this second generator, second receiver at the same time within the next few days. And then we can test it. And then you will understand that the energy, even in the transfer from one reactor to another, is not only through plasmatic, partially will be through the step down of the electronics to the electrical current levels, electron vibration. Ahmed just arrived. Now I give him the headphone because he did a very nice he did a very nice experiment this week with a spherical ball, transparent. We'll let him explain to you.
Can I add something for a second before you go?
Yes. Good morning, Ludmil.
Hi, good morning. Whoever is interested, I make screenshots of the scope, and it's on my YouTube channel. That was like a couple of months ago. So if somebody is interested, can go to my channel and take a look. That's one thing. And before we go to the next reactor, I got a quick question. It's regarding, you mentioned the nitrogen is basically the thing which creates the water in the lungs. Does that mean...
The level of nitrogen and its interaction in the condition in the lung.
Yes. Does that mean if we have old person with water in the lungs, if we reduce the nitrogen, is going to help?
No, doesn't mean nitrogen. You have to understand the level of operation of the lung to adjust. This is what I've said before in medical, what they call health lectures. There you can adjust the amount of the nitrogen, or you can choose different kind of extra or isotopes of oxygen or carbon in the oxygen you feed to the person. That it changes the condition. I was explaining this to Ivan because he's a medical man, he's a dentist and medical background. I was explaining to him last week when he was here. A lot of people speak about the death code. The death code of the cell. The death code of the cell, it comes, the cell dies or stops functioning as a cell. When the DNA in the cell winds down. When you have a fresh cell, the DNA is very upright. It's a different structure, it's much wide opener. And as the energy is used, which is a phosphor connection in the structure of the connection of the amino acids, in the backbone structure of the DNA, then at the end where the DNA structure collapses or reduces to a level which cannot transmit between itself, this is when the cell stops functioning as a cell for what it's been set up for. So this is understanding the condition. So in the lung is the same way. You have a nitrogen, it's the level of nitrogen which creates the ionization. So when you change the size, this comes very much to like what you call different pressures creates different condition of matter, like solid, liquid and gases. When you change the gravitational magnetic fields, you create a different condition, which that condition in the structure of the lung leads to link up of the hydrogen, actually the helium, with the oxygen and hydrogen in the lung, and you immediately produce water. So the water produced in the lung is created because of the nitrogen centralization condition, which leads to the what do you call it, the helium extraction from the oxygen. So when you make a small change, you produce more hydrogens, or you don't ionize the hydrogen in the lung. At the same time, you have oxygen which is arrived in the lung. Oxygen links up with the hydrogen and you create water in the lung so rapidly. And in a matter of hours, you can have liters of it, because you measure the volume of the air breathed in by the patient, and then you get a good measure of how much water is produced. The water doesn't come from internal organs, otherwise the whole body dries up. If you have a fever and you sweat for so long, you get dehydration. These doctors never ask a simple question: why doesn't the patient dehydrate if it's so much water is coming into the lung? So if so much water is extracted from internal organs, why nothing collapses with the lack of water? Why does the kidneys stop? We don't see these things. This is what the medical world has never understood. So in so many ways, by changing the environment of the lung, or you can even open the lung, if you can get the patient even to open up the chest, you change the pressure in the lung, you find that the pneumonia and the water extraction in the body will change automatically, and even the water will be evaporated directly out itself. You don't need to extract it. We tried this with great success about 7-8 years ago. We understand the process fully, and this is what I keep on going back is, as we put the medical science in pieces over years, and because it was written, it was accepted, we have followed the same kind of hypocrisy. You ask a doctor, okay, 6 liters of water or 3 liters of water in the lung, where is it coming from? Why the kidneys are not failing? Because you dehydrate if you walk in a desert for half an hour, I lose a liter of water. How come you have 6 liters of water in the lungs and the guy is still alive and the kidneys are working perfectly? Because it's created from the air you breathe. You control the air, you can carry on. People should not die of pneumonia and lung water in the lung. I did that when I was in the hospital with my accident 3-4 years ago when I fell off the horse. I understood the pain of pneumonia, and I created a condition around my lungs when I was in the hospital that I stopped coughing this greenish thing out. Because of the puncture in my lung, the condition in my lung was changed. So I could see it, and it took me 2-3 days. It was finished. So not only I explained this is not theoretical, but practically I've done it on myself. In 22nd of June this year, it'll be 4 years ago, when my ribs broke and punctured my lung. So you can create the conditions if you understand it. That's what I keep on telling you. Just don't look at the reactor rotating. Understand this rotated reactor which creates plasma, what effects it has in its environment. You can stop all the pneumonias. You can stop half of the diseases. I'll give the headphone to Armin.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Armin, good morning.
Hey, Armin.
Yes, how are you, Dave? You know, I think you have all the pictures that I posted in Facebook. Transparent ball. You know, what we did,
Morning, Armin.
we inject.
Yep, we got them.
You know, what we did, we inject 2 type of GANs in there. If you see, one is a darker and one is a kind of orange. Different GANs have, I think, different atomic weight. Because it's created from different materials.
So just a question about the orange. Do you know what kind of GANS is the orange? Because I'm producing the orange and I'm wondering what it is.
It's CH3, as far as we know.
Okay.
If you ask me what kind of materials we are producing, I cannot explain you that. But what I can explain, you know, how it functions. You know, understanding is if you rotate them, the lighter material is going to go inner side. And you can clearly see when I rotate it, you know, all the fields go like donut type shape. And, you know, the lighter material is just rotating just in the middle. It's like when it's you don't have to drain a lot of water, I think, because the water gives more flexibility material to float. Because
Armin,
we don't
which
have
was
a
the heavier material?
I think it's a darker material. I really cannot answer what kind of.
No, I'm just at exactly the darker or the lighter stuff.
Yeah.
The orange stuff was in the middle, or was it closer to the edge as well?
In the middle.
And were
In the
you
middle.
in the middle, so
rotate it
you
high
weren't
speed,
using
yes.
any CO2.
What is it? No,
You
no.
weren't using any of the white stuff.
We didn't add any CO2. I want to try that, you know. I want to try all the mixture of GANs, you know, to rotate to understand where it stands, you know. Yes, yeah. Definitely. When you rotate, the water goes to the bottom on high speed. And all the heavier material is sticking on a wall. Not the whole of the ball, it's just a strip. Yeah, strip, like donut shape, I explained. Yes, it's a donut shape. This is very unusual, the centrifuge. Yeah. It's really, if you do tests, you know, pay attention, you will understand. You know, it gives you that this is what's happening in plasma reactors.
Right. Was the ball full?
What is it?
Was the ball full?
No, it's not. No. Half.
And the rest was air or water?
Air. I drain the water, you know, as much as I can. Because when you, because the material over there, it's if you squeeze them, it's 1 gram maybe, you know. The rest of it is the water.
Now, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this question. but did you notice any kind of structure on the outside wall where it was the donut shape with the darker material?
One more time. What is it?
Any kind of structure in the darker material on the outside once it was rotated? Did it form a structure?
It's form a structure, correct. It will
It
stick
did.
on a wall. After you stop the boat, the ball rotating, it will stick on a wall like a donut shape, you know. Only the
Okay.
lighter material you're gonna see in the water.
Right, exactly. And the outside of that ball, I seen that it was clear. Can you see any structure inside of the darker material?
Like meaning
Or is it
physical
just
structure?
random? Yeah,
No, it's
physical
random.
stuff.
I think
Okay.
it's random. If I have a microscope, I can tell you exactly the structure, but I have not. You know, I have glasses.
How about, because you said it's a donut, so that means there's an interior that has the fluid in it. How about on the inside part of the donut that is still a matter? Is there a structure at that point, or is it more of a donut shape, nice and smooth?
It's a donut shape, nice and sticky, like a tape around the wall.
No, it's the inside of it. This is the wall.
Yeah.
The inside.
Oh,
Okay.
no, I really cannot tell you because you know. Yeah, it's inside.
Why doesn't the other material stick onto the wall?
Don't worry, it's something I'll find out for myself, I'm sure.
Why?
Let me explain.
Why? Because
I just explain this that you understand, and then I'll give it back to Armin, because I think what he's doing is an insight into what we'll achieve in the gaseous state of matter in the reactors. The work he's doing now is pivotal point to the future development of the reactors with GANs. But we have the beauty of the way he's doing it to see the full structure before we close in the ceramic structure of John. We are looking at it. What happens is because you have the GANs materials on the outer, the darker one, which is the more stronger gravitational magnetic field one, which is stuck to the wall. Now the other orange, this is a darker orange. There is another material which is separated directly from the water, which is in there. When he starts to centrifuge, this second GANs comes up and it sticks exactly in the same donut. It doesn't go higher or lower. The reason for being is that the GANs material, which is stuck in the wall, on the wall, creates its own gravitational magnetic field. And the second one, the orange one, has its own gravitational magnetic. So the two, because of the gravitational magnetic field positioning, create a gap. So the second material, literally, the minute he starts his core, goes up, and it never doesn't stick to the one which is stuck to the wall. It goes up, the water stays at the bottom, and it then when he stops it, it drops down again. But this is exactly the same characteristics as you've seen with your nanowires. You cannot weld two nanowires together. You cannot solder them. You cannot do anything with them that they connect because they create a gravitational magnetic field gap. It's like literally like a Teflon, you call it, but this is a physical gravity. Now we see the same property for the first time in the liquid gaseous state. The reason that the lighter orange material does not stick when it goes into centrifuge to the material which is already stuck to the wall is because they both are in a gaseous state. They create their own gravitational magnetic field. So when he starts a rotation, the field just goes, it gets pulled up. It's part of the positioning. You will see this is how you attract satellites into your systems. When you send the craft out to come back to the mothership, this is how you bring it in. You absorb, you create a condition which comes in the middle, and then you stop it, and then it lands. So you see these characteristics in the same material. He's got a two, even though in a, what do you call it, the liquid shape form, they both still have the property of the gravitational magnetic GANs. So when he creates a rotation, the material comes in and the two never mix because they have different gravitational magnetic field. Is exactly like the two nanowires. And the matter, because they create a field, they push and they keep the field internally in the center. So the matter, which is the water, which is a matter, does not get mixed with the GANs. This is a very clear knowledge for you knowledge seekers to understand how matter and GANs stay separated. Even at that revolution, the water stays, because in the center, in that band, the donut, there is a gravitational magnetic field strength which the center is equal to the dark matter, or what you call principal matter. And the matter is too weak to join this, so the water stays at the bottom or at the boundary periphery of the donut outside it. So you got to understand the process and the reason why you see these characteristics. If you add, let's say, CO2 that we can keep separate from the other two, then you most probably see the CO2 again goes as its own layer inside this condition, and the water will still the same, because now you create both gravitational magnetic field separation between the orange and the white. So they slide over, just like the planets inside each other. This is part of the reasons, if you go further, very much with the ring of Saturns. Due to the gravitational magnetic field of internally strength of the matter, you see different bandwidth. And where there is a separation between the bands is where you see a dark. If you can explore and expand the picture between the layers, between the orange and the darker, you should be able to see a very, very dark space, like the bandwidth we see in the ring of Saturn. The dark bandwidth is because where the gravitational magnetic field are in balance, and then there is no interaction. It's literally create a dark energy magnetic field balance condition, no interaction. Hold on.
Any questions? Hello?
Well, I would like to share my experience. I got dark red, brownish guns, and I dried it. And after that, when I try to dissolve it in water, there is almost no dissolving. So basically, using yours as a centrifuge, maybe that's what's happening. It's getting dry, and after that don't come back in the water itself, doesn't dissolve anymore.
I understand that, but what about the second material? Second material is not sticking on a wall. You see the drop of the water, clear water floating, under the bowl. And you see clearly that the second material is floating in the middle and not sticking to the walls.
That's different material, yeah.
One of the reasons with this core we see this behavior of sticking is because Arman, for ease of stopping the vibration and the oscillation of the core, has put this ball in a container. And I suggested to him not to stop the friction in the system, not to crack the ball, to put water in it. So part of this layer sticking to the wall is due to the static and the energy which is continuously shared between the ball and the wall. And when we empty the water is warm. So that's part of the reasons, one of the only reasons why the material does not fall. It creates some sort of a static condition between the plasma and the matter on the walls due to the friction at that point. But if there was no friction, even the orange system should float on its own. We will show this later on. This is the reason why it is sticky there.
Yes, Ludmil.
I'll
Any
just
more
share my
questions?
experience, no?
What is it?
Just sharing experience. I dried it and I see it's not dissolving back. So once it's dried, it's not dissolving back. That's all.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, regarding dissolving, we have heat GANS material here also. We have burned it and we tried to put back to the water, and actually it's not dissolving anymore. It stays the same in the same composition as it was after burning or after evaporation of water. Even GANS material that we used for seed experiment, we left this GANS on the outside. Actually, in the sun, it was hot day, and water evaporates out of the container, and only GANS material stayed in the container. And after putting back water into container, we couldn't get the same structure as it was before, like slippery jelly type structure. Most probably the outer layers of these GANS converted into matter, back into the matter. That's
I have
that's my point of view.
I have some cells with copper coated, sorry, copper oxide GANs that were not producing much energy or GANs itself, and they were filled with water, and still the GANs were accumulating on the bottom and getting denser, so denser that when I washed the container, I had to use the brush for cleaning cooking pans, you know, that green stuff that is really hard. And even so, I had to scratch a little harder to get it off. I think the material is getting denser even inside the water. Can you explain that, please, if you know how to?
It's getting smaller and smaller. It's more fine material. At the beginning, there were bigger balls,
like
let's
that.
say. And now it's smaller and smaller and very, very fine material. And I would say it's
heavier also.
Well,
at least the
well,
way it falls down.
Yes. Actually, if you have bigger ball, it opens up more. But you have the same source. So maybe that's the reason that you have heavier, because it's more dense. Actually, you have more balls in the.
I was
one volume.
extracting regularly, and then I stopped extracting because it was not producing so much, and I think it stayed at the same level for about a week. And then when I tried to wash it, then I noticed that hardening and dancing of the material.
We have similar conditions also here. We are not producing so much copper GANs as we were producing in the start of our process. Um, it's less, but it's more finer and finer. Mm. Maybe Marek will explain how he had burned the materials.
Hello, Marek.
Hello.
I was trying to boil the guns material. First, I tried to boil the blue stuff and just using a pot and gas fire. So after a while of evaporating, the water was evaporating slowly on the stove, and after almost all water came out, the color changed from that light blue green one to more dark, like khaki one, and then slowly all of the water came out and it changed to brown. And I continued to heat it, and after a while it slowly changed to gray or black material. This was the experiment with the copper guns. When I repeated this experiment with the white stuff guns or zinc guns, I have had similar experience. The water just came out. This time it was very fast because I have used a torch outside with fire. So the water evaporated and the white stuff didn't change to something, to some other color, but simply stayed white. Only a little shadow of yellow was there, like a cream, white cream. So I've got the powder of this white cream color. So I think that the copper guns transform to copper oxide in this process, and the zinc guns transform to something like zinc oxide or something similar. That is from my experience. I would like to also share something we do outside. I've put some pictures on Facebook regarding the plant growing and with guns or without guns. Now we are at the position that only one plant is already quite growing well fastly, which is the crest, the green with very small leaves you can eat. So far, you can see on the pictures there that so far I don't see any difference, but we have to wait what happens when it grows more. I tried the crest without guns, the crest with zinc guns and copper guns, which I sprayed with syringe on the seeds. These seeds are very small, so I just put them in the row in the soil and injected the guns over it from the syringe. We have also other seeds, but they are still germinating and slowly occurring above the ground, so we have to wait. Another experiment there, which Jorge initiated with Armen, was frog children experiments. Tapos, that's the name. Finally, I learned something in English. So we put these little babies into 2 containers, and into 1 container was added the zinc or white guns. You can see on pictures on Facebook Spaceship Institute page in the album Animals and Guns. And the evolution so far is that in the container with guns we see much clearer water, and the algae plants which are inside grow faster and produce more oxygen. You can see the bubbles, the difference between the grow of this algae in the container with guns and without. So with guns it's more active, and those frog babies are quite, I don't know, I don't see any big difference in this tadpole population. So I see only the difference in the algae grow and production of oxygen. The next thing I would like to share is about parallel experiments done by others in the Ormus research, and I see quite big parallel with this guns research. I consider it the same, only the names are changed. When they use this Ormus material on plants and try to see the difference how the plants grow, you can see clearly that you get much bigger fruits. Let's say orange is much bigger than normal orange without treatment of this Ormus. The same for other plants which are growing faster and are more vital. So in this way it shows clear indication that this kind of materials which are not yet fully understood by current science have impact on the growth and the conditions also in the body. They have used it also on teeth and have shown some teeth reparation using this material. They have used it on some damaged cat tail, and the cat tail just grown after the treatment with this Ormus material, grown quite well. And other experiments done, so it's interesting to compare it. And regarding the understanding from this outer research done, initiated by David Hudson 30 years ago, and continued by others, by other teams as well. You can see some understanding which can be, I think, well merged with this research in GANs. That when they do the spectroscopy analysis, they usually are confused by the results because what they see is actually the impurities in the material, and David Hudson invested money to some chemist group he hired, and they have developed some method. As John already mentioned, they call it long burning spectroscopy. When they compare the spectroscopy analysis before it is done in normal way, and then done in long burning way, when the Ormus or GANS transforms back to its normal low spin state, and they compare this analysis, and from these differences they know how much Ormus material was in the sample. They analyze, let's say, the brain, and in the dried state, and they have found 5% Ormus material in the brain of some animals.
Excuse me to interrupt just a second. Mr. Keshe said that GANs cannot be disrupted, so can we make a clarification?
That GANs cannot be what? Destroyed?
Yes. In any
it
way.
It is not destroyed. It is transformed. It is actually, but Mr. Keshe also said that by burning, you transform it back to its lower energetic matter state, or gas state, depending what material was the original GANs. So what do they see? They call it Ormus because it means orbitally rearranged monatomic elements. They doesn't need to be just monatomic structures when the atoms of, let's say, metals are transformed in a way that their outer electrons form Cooper pairs, and in this way create superconductive state. And because of these pairs are pairs of electrons are formed, they no longer interact like non-paired electrons chemically with the environment. So you cannot, that's why you cannot make also the analysis or chemical analysis of these substances, because they are in high spin state, they are in more open state, which allows these electrons to form these pairs and make it superconductive. So that is the part interesting to be compared to what we do. Can you ask something or just say something if you want.
Thank you for that, Mark. I did listen to a lecture by David Hudson back in I think it was 1999 or 2000, and verify what you just said. And I did follow his work for a number of years until he disappeared from public view. Thank you for that. It does make sense. The research that I did does, I can now, with confidence, cross-connect it with a GANs. Thank you.
Mhm. You're welcome. And one more thing from me, because I'm leaving this weekend home to my family. I want to say hello say goodbye from the Spaceship Institute to you all, and thank you for the support. And I hope the cooperation will still continue in good ways, so that we can still help each other.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck, and I don't know, it's not gonna be easy, that's for sure.
Yes, but we can help each other. Thank you.
Will you be
Thank you
coming?
for all your information.
Will you be coming back at a certain point, or is that open-ended at this time?
That is still open question.
I see. Thank you.
After 6 months at least.
Any other question? I have to thank Marek. He's been a huge contribution. He's made a huge contribution to the work of the foundation while he was here. He's one of the first knowledge seekers who's been offered a position as a teacher in the new institute. We'll wait to see what decision he makes. Any other questions?
Well, we are coming up on 3
Yes, Mr.
hours
Keshe.
here, and of course, right
I
on
would like
time.
Always
to,
have the last question.
yes, if I may,
Okay, let's
ask the last question.
Yeah.
Okay, we can go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So basically, what I would like to ask you, because you accenting the safety of operation. What I wanted to ask you, in the last workshops, we learned about the fact that from the coated electrodes, the gas will fall into the water, having hydrogen gas, copper, whatever, zinc. And when we extract that with protein or whatever is coming on the top layer of the liquid, it's very likely that some of the gas will go or will be sucked by the syringe with the liquid protein or the fatty thing that is there. So in your experience, is any way in which before doing something, these gases could be filtered or separated and thrown back in the container for not touching it, as you suggested today, for safety purpose? And secondly, I'm connecting with the previous question about destruction. I have a different understanding of how to say changing or modification and destruction. So let's say if I want to destroy the substance, that means I have to go through a process in which I really break the structure, whatever. I'm putting it back in atomic form. I don't know what.
No.
Let
me explain. Let me explain.
Yes.
The word destruction is the wrong way. If you, the easiest way you can understand the reversal of the GANs, what happens to it, as if you understood from the beginning, we always say your body, the amino acid is in the GANs state. Look what happens to your body when they cremate it. It's exactly the same process. What is left as ashes is mainly the calcium, the bones. It's the same process. Long burn, short burn. Some of us fall in the fire and burn instantly, and some of us pay for it to be burned in a low, slow, or a fast way in crematorium. This is what you do to the state of you. You just explained before that while you were making the GANs, you ran 7 lights. So the process of releasing a matter state of nano to GANs has released some states. By burning, doesn't matter in what shape or form, at the right level, you put this energy back, and the material goes back into the gas state of it in this environment. If you create a different environment around, let's say in a crematorium where you're burning the body, and you can collect and create a condition, you can create a condition that the matters go back to their atomic matter structure. This is another part of the life process. What happens when you cremate a body? Where does all that mass goes? Part of it is water, but about the rest of it, which is carbon, hydrogen, and the rest of it. So if one day scientists measure the total mass which comes, or element which comes from the burning of a body with all these elements considered, you'll find out all you do, as you took energy to light up your LEDs, you took energy in the plasma form, in the AC and the DC, whatever shape or form, plus the losses. By burning, you put a frequency, not a frequency, a gravitational magnetic field from the matter which is burned into the plasma, which that plasma disassociates back to its matter condition. By burning, you just don't change the matter. By burning, you release plasma, gravitational magnetic field of plasma of an atom, which is a structure of the wood or gas or whatever it is. So this word of burning, when you burn it, low burning process is a matter condition. But in fact, what you do in burning, you do exactly what we did with the heating of the electrode of copper, which you created in the material. In burning, you release in structures part of the gravitational magnetic field, which when it touches the field of the amino acid, because it's of the same structure, it opens it up and the structure goes back to it. So in the long run, if we measure the amino acid structure, the carbon and hydrogen and everything else, and we contain the body when it's cremated, we should reach the same elements of what has been put in the body. So the long-term burn, short-term burn is the way you transfer the matter GANs from the wood or fire in the plasmatic form, which dilutes, allows the separation of the GANs of the amino acid. And that's why you don't find any leftover. So if you confine that body when it's burnt and you find out how much of it in that process has become the matter, that's why we become just the size of the bones we carry. And we can be carried 100 kilo in a small gasket of what is matter, which is the calcium leftovers. As you know, homeopathic scientists have done a lot of research, and as they say, they find 12 common salts in this remain. So that is part of it. So still part of the matter, the GANs converts into matter, that it can show itself as a salt in this remains. And so the process is understanding the event, not just looking at part of it. So the long, what do you call it, burn process is how much you can transfer energy, plasma, from the matter. I explained this in a very simple way to Armin, because Armin comes from a background of helping people to lose weight. And I try whenever it's possible to explain to him that he can, in the long run, help people in that way throughout the world, not just in where he is in California or Florida, in California. The process of why you get fat, why people get fat, It's the same process as you go long burn. When you get to the reason you get fat, this oversized situation which is hanging around the world is very simple. You have, and most of the people around the world are becoming habitual to what is known the drinks with the CO2 in it. We call it a gas water, or a Coca-Cola which has got a gas in it, or Canada Dry which has got a CO2 in it. At the same time, most of these people have in these drinks, or the connection with these drinks, what is called the sugar, which is CH bond. So you're putting CO2, a CH bond, which is a sugar bond, with the amino acid, which is CO and H. So you're locking 3 carbons as a communicator between 3 elements. Now, what are you left? You're left with a hydrogen and oxygen free. And in a condition, a part of the oxygen conversion and the process with amino acid, what you're left with is production of water. So now you drink Coca-Cola or whatever with a sugar and a carbon, CO2, produces what it produces is a water, extra additional water, but in a gaseous state. At the same time, most of the food in the developing world, for preservation, to preserve them long-term preservation in any shape or form, are laced and contain huge amount of salt. Now what do? You created a link of the carbon with the amino acid, that's the fat. You have created the water, and now you have added the salt. The salt always connects to the water, because otherwise, if the salt which you ate digested stays as a salt on its own, will burn and create infection. So what it does, it gets diluted in the water you have. You have the fat or amino acid which clusters it. So you create a cell from interaction and connection between the carbon of the CO2, the carbon of the sugar, and the carbon of the amino acid. And at the same time, the amino acids become a cluster of it. So now you have a sac with salt water inside. Sodium, or it can be potassium. It doesn't make any, but the body decides. So now you get this expansion of a sac with the water in it, a sac and the water in it. Then you go on a diet. What do you do when you go on diet? You empty the sac from the water, or part of the water. So you lose 10 kilos, or 5 kilos. And the minute you start the diet and start drinking Coca-Cola and whatever you used to drink, all you do, you fill up the sac back in the salt again, and it gets expanded. And this is what we see in the process of the, what do you call it, weight increase around the world. So, in fact, if we take the sugar out of the CO2, or CO2 out of the drink, or at the same time reduce or take the salt that doesn't become the seed to become the center, you will not get the weight, what do you call it, expansion of the waist and the weight increase. You got to understand the process. These things all happens in the gas state, not in the matter state. So by understanding the process, in reality what you do, I've taught Arman and others earlier on, if you can develop the process that the body realizes and can reject the salt seed in these cavities, where the water is held and you become fat, then there is nothing for water to hold on to as a seed, as a salt, with the sodium which is in it. So the fat, the loss is total, because there is no seed of the salt to need water to hold on to, that they get covered up by the amino acid protein. So in a process, try to understand the process of the creation. It's the same as what we call the long burn. All you do, and that's one of the reasons they find salt, or you find salt in the remains as a matter, is because these salts are these are part of the structure of the lubrication and softness of the body. These are one of the reasons why you find the skin of the young are soft, and when you get older it crinkles up, because the salt content within the layers of the skin creates that cavity for it. When the cavity collapses or you cannot hold on, the freshness of the skin goes. So try to understand the process. Doesn't matter where the research comes from. The humanity is built on the research and development of the past scientists. In not just understanding it, but understand what it does and how it can be implemented for the use. So when you burn, it's the same process when you create. So those who are working in the weight watching system, they will never teach you, or they have never understood. Maybe it's the first time I explained this in a couple of my lectures before as well. If you can develop a process that the body falls into a trap that it doesn't need the salt, then the salt is rejected, and then there is no process for cavity of the fat to stay. You will not put your weight back on. The people who lose weight in different ways are the people that in their diet encourage the withdrawal of this salt content in the what do you call it, in the atmosphere of the fat. That's why the fat is so what do you call it? It's like a lubricant. It's like fluid because of this salt inside. One of the methods which has to be done, I explained to Armin how it's done, but it has to be done by scientists, by people, physicians who understand it, is to fool the body into the trap that there is a lot of salts coming. So the body has a habit, when it receives a lot of something, it empties its tanks for the fresh material. So you can dictate a process. What I call the reversal process is that if you wash, this is why olden days people were all healthy in so many ways. We did not see so many diseases, because once you incubate these conditions of fat around the body, so you change the magnetic field, then in it becomes a cancer and everything else on top of the stress. So one of the ways to empty these salt tanks, but it's got to be done by a physician. You can't just do it because you hear it here. It's a process. We developed the process. We know exactly how to operate. Is if you, for example, as they did in olden days, wash your mouth with salt, or some people do with, what do you call it, different materials. The body, if you don't need to wash your mouth, you need to give the sensation of the salt to the position where the salt is felt on your tongue. If you rub a salt on your tongue, where the taste of the salt is monitored, the brain receives a huge information. It's a large amount of salt is coming. But what you do when you rub it on your tongue, you wash your mouth fully, thoroughly, a few times, that you don't absorb any of this salt. So in that instruction, body empties the salt content around the body, waiting for the fresh material. But in fact, because it doesn't receive it, because you washed everything out, the salt immediately is already gone into your blood to go into urine to be ejected, or sometime deposited in your liver if it's needed in the future. So now you kill, or not, you don't kill, you deplete the source of the salt from some of the fat cells. So you find out, because it's not there, the water will go and people lose weight. But this has to be done by physicians, not by common people, because do not forget that all the muscles in your body carry a certain amount of fat, and it's in even your heart, even part of your brain. The process has to be understood and controlled by the scientists who understand the process fully. So the same process as you cremate, you convert. The same process you can convert the salt in the body in a GANS state into the GANS that it crosses the wall, and the body rejects itself as a salt. And the urine test will show how much salt you are rejecting and how much weight. But this process will take like 6 months, 8 months, and has to be monitored fully. So we start teaching on either side of the process. This is important. So when you speak about long-term process of anything, burning or losing, You have to understand why and how and the situation. Doesn't matter how much research is done. They never understood the principle behind it. We knew the gravity is here from the beginning of the times, but we never understood how it's developed till the foundation explained and built the systems which replicate it. So just because we add to the knowledge, understand how to use the knowledge, and just because we added the knowledge years ago and other people are replicating it, that doesn't mean there is now is a common knowledge. It means now has to be understood. The jumping time stops, but now to analyzing how much you jump and what you jump has to start. That's why we start calibrating the reactors. The beauty of the human race is that the knowledge is built on the back of the others and is added to in a correct way. And when we understand the process, we don't need to hang people from the churches, and we don't need to put people in prison because we don't understand it. The process is very easy. If you don't understand what happens to the gans, understand what happens to your own body when you're cremated. We showed you in the process how to create protein. The protein that you produce is not the protein that you are used to as to be slippery and to be fat. The protein is a nano-gans structure which is in interaction with the space. So then at the same time you've seen how to use it. Now you explain, you can understand in your own life how you can elongate the process of life. If man understands how to use the GANS process, you can live for 2,000-3,000 years. Years is irrelevant in the space. Years is man-made. So the long term, how you extract and how you feed this process, it depends how long you can understand the creation in the present structure of your body. So when you burn it or when you die, what happens to it is an addition to the process, addition to the knowledge. Now you understand why it's not just by burning the body, but you transfer part of the plasma of the matter which you release. The same thing, when you burn, you create ganses. And these ganses go through the environment, become plasma that they can interact with the body at high. And because it's a carbon, you burn with a gas or you burn with a wood, which is again got a carbon construction, is made of the same thing. So the way the carbon connection gave you the sugar and the fat, the same plasmatic condition of the charcoal or the wood, which is changed into a gans of it, in interaction with the carbon of your amino acid, that opens up this condition that each element separates because it's received the energy which brought it together. To understand the full process, don't just jump to one end, this is what's happening just because somebody is. A lot of people have done a lot of things and never understood the full process. We got to finish this about 11:30. I've got an important meeting to go to. We might have some very interesting news for you. I know we will have a very interesting news for you in the next workshop. And I would like to thank all those who have supported us with sending the emails to International Criminal Court. We know they are still going there and we're receiving a lot of support. And I hope we can protect scientists through the way we do, because the way scientists around this table, they are becoming true scientists because there is no limitation in sharing their knowledge with you. And they are becoming what I call true human beings. The knowledge, there is no limit. I sit here and I listen to what they share with you, and more or less nothing is hidden. Whatever they understand, they share with you directly. And this is how it should be back to us and with the rest of humanity. And if we can protect scientists like this to be open, we still create a lot of jobs, but we all equally benefit by it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Keshe,
Bye.
and everybody there from the Spaceship Institute. Once again, it's amazing. A lot of information came out today. Great stuff. Thank you. Okay, that'll end for the live stream. That'll end the 12th Knowledge Seekers Workshop. And thanks to everybody for attending. Thank you very much.